What is going on? Pretender here, back with another Honkai style video, and today I'm here with my final impressions of Tribbie. Her band is practically about to leave in 2 days, and since she did come out, she's practically been on every team. I practically tested her with every DPS I do own and the ones I don't own. Just because she's that damn universal, it can practically be used anywhere. Even if it's not completely optimal, she's still good on there. Changes drastically so if you have dupes or not as well. So today I want to be giving my final impressions on what I do think. Before I get into the video, if you guys find this video enjoyable or helpful in any way, shape, or form, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all the types of style content. And let's get straight into the video. So I'm going to be talking about practically every level I did have at one point. So I'll talk about E0 S0, E0 S1, E1 S1, and now E2 S1, which I do have now. So starting it off with E0 S0. So Tribbie is a fantastic user of S5 DDD, which is why you don't really need her signature light code. Her signature light code is still very nice because it gives you energy and allows you to get all practically right away. Also allows you to run an HP rope instead, which is a big increase to damage. And on top of that, you give everyone a big 48% increase to crit damage, which is also just massive. But it's still hard to beat out S5 DDD because that's usually so powerful because you get that 24 action form for your entire team when using ultimate, and Tribbie does cycle ult pretty often. So already being able to use S5 DDD that well because you're giving everyone turns, so if you tune it correctly, that can give you an extra action in that cycle MLC or whatever you're doing just to clear faster, accelerate irritations. It's already good at that. But outside of that, so first talking about her buffs. So her buffs at E0 SO just absolutely were just great. It didn't seem like it was gonna be too crazy when she was revealed and all that stuff, but it definitely did end up being really crazy even at E0 S0. Skill giving you 24% all-time rest pen, which is already insane because usually only dupes give you some form of all-time rest pen besides someone like Ruan Mei. That's practically Robin's E1 right there, just in a skill. And then when it comes to her ultimate, you get that additional clock to damage. You're also making enemies take more damage, which is good. So at E0, it's very simple debuffs or whatever you have on the enemy. I guess you consider buff and debuff. Yet very effective because additional damage dealt, that's going to benefit anyone because it's just free extra damage on top of your existing damage in the ultimate. On top of that, making enemies take 30% more damage. That's also universal because everyone gets more damage dealt. And then also getting the actual all-time rest pen, which is also beneficial because everyone can benefit from all-time rest pen. So her buff slash debuff at E0 is already really good. And on top of that, she's able to deal some damage herself, even without the E1 giving her herself access to true damage while giving everyone else as well. Even then, especially if you're running her alongside of someone else, which is pretty common, you know, if you have something like a Robin on the team. So Tribbie also does get that buff. Whatever you are doing, it doesn't unfortunately matter for the attack buff that Robin gives, but the other stuff still works. And then whatever you're doing that might have universal buffs there as well, such as Ruan Mei. Any buffs you are giving the team also just apply to her, it actually increases her follow-up damage because even at E0, her follow-up damage is really nice. And it's definitely really good as a sub-DPS because you're able to do it pretty frequently. You're able to cycle it frequently if you're running an ER rope, which is very plausible since you wouldn't be having the light code in the case, and it's just been performing very well. And so she's practically just increasing everyone's damage that you are doing on that team. If you're running a dual DPS setup, if you're running a hyper carry, regardless, it will increase their damage by a good amount. And even at E0, she's just such a fantastic slot in. Like, you know, if you're doing a sustainless run, you could literally just slot her in. If you're running something else, you could slot her in if you have a free slot. So at E0, I'm pretty sure she's practically already a perfect unit, in my opinion. She's already performing super well. You don't need her light code. E1 is super broken, but you don't really need it. Something you definitely should consider because of how good it is, but it's definitely something that doesn't need to be had at this very moment. E0 performance is very nice. Now with the light code on top of that, don't really gotta talk about it too much because, you know, it's just extra crit damage and also allows her to get an HP orb and allows her to get an HP rope rather than an ER rope. You do lose the access and advantage that S5 DDD can give you, but instead you're getting a big increase to crit damage. So if you're running her alongside any DPS that wants a crit, which is usually on her best teams, you now have an extra 48% crit damage, and on top of that, Tribbie is doing a lot more damage herself since again you're now able to swap out the ER rope for HP, which is going to increase her damage, and she herself also does get the crit damage buff, so when she does crit, she does even more damage. In certain tunings, S5 DDD can definitely outperform, but the light cones just effects it does give, you know, the big crit damage buff, you know, allowing you to get more damage out of your Tribbie as well. It's a very nice light code to have as well, which is why me personally, I do prefer running her signature light code over S5 DDD just because the things it does provide, Tribbie also doing more damage herself, the big crit damage buff, it's just really nice to have. So the light code also a pretty big jump. Now talking about her broken E1, which pretty much makes it to where she is now able to deal an instance of true damage equal to 24% of total damage of this attacks done to enemies that have been dealt additional damage by the zone. True damage, you guys don't know, does damage based off the original damage as it does state, depends differently on who's doing it because, you know, remember Showa has a different scaling, Tribbie has a different scaling. It's just a big increase to all sources of damage you already done. Tribbie's damage herself skyrockets. Your hyper carry absolutely skyrockets. dual DPS setups, both of them are doing so much more damage. At E0 and E0S1, I definitely think Tribbie is on the higher side. I don't know if I want to consider her T0. I think she could probably be argued to be up there. Personally, I think at E0, I definitely prefer the other ones a little more. If there was like a tier thing, I'd prefer one over the other. But at E1, I think Tribbie is far and none at the very top. That is just my opinion, though. I think Tribbie at E1 is just the best harmony support in the game. Just because that extra true damage, though, is just a big increase to everyone, because everyone benefits from true damage. It is just free damage, and if the harder number you do hit, or the bigger number you do hit, the more damage the true damage will deal, making your total damage even higher. It's just so much free damage on top of what you're already getting. You get the additional damage from the actual zone and the ultimate, making enemies take more damage. Tribbie's giving everyone all-type rest pen, and now she's also giving everyone true damage, and so your damage skyrockets by that much. Tribbie can already make old DPSs run pretty well, but with E1, I was practically able to revive the uses of my old units. I made Blade 2 cycle, I made Zele 1 cycle, and made them perform like actual really good numbers. Like I made a Blade follow-up attack hit for 1,000,000. I made Zele's skills hit for 400, 500k, or ultimate hit like 600k once. It was just absurd to see the damage they were able to deal. The sheer strength of this E1 is just so strong on top of her very strong base kit. And so when you do factor in the E1 true damage, she just becomes so much better. And I think with that dupe, she does become the best harmony support in the game. And is definitely my favorite one to use because, again, you literally can slaughter in anywhere at E0. And at E1, it just becomes that much more powerful. You can slaughter in any sustainless team. Even with the sustain at E1, she sometimes beats out other options. I've tried an E1 Tribbie with Boot Hill instead of running Sunday at one point and somehow still zero cycled. It's just insane how strong that E1 actually is. You already consider the fact that she's so universal in her base kit because practically everything everyone can use. The only thing that everyone can't really use is her light cone, which is crit damage, which is changeable, so it's not the big thing to consider because, you know, break characters besides Boot Hill can't really use the crit damage. Dock characters can't really use the crit damage, but any other base crit line DPS benefits a bunch from it. That's like the only thing that no one can benefit from, but when it comes to the rest of her kit, everyone can benefit from it. And then it comes to the E1, everyone in the game also benefits from that. So an already strong unit becomes that much more powerful with the power of a one early dupe. So E1, definitely probably one of the best dupes in the game, if not the best dupe in the game to get. Very, very happy with the performance she does get at E1. So E2, why do I even have E2, you may ask? Because E1 is the perfect stopping point. I was building a bit of pity and it just happened. You know, it was early, so I did not complain because why would I complain about an early? Don't build pity, guys. I was just, you know, gambling addict in me kind of went crazy and it just kind of happened. So yeah, here we are. So if you guys don't know what the E2 does, it increases the additional damage dealt by the zone to 120% of the original damage. And also when the zone does do damage, it deals an extra instance of additional damage. I already tested this by other means, but it was definitely not as significant, obviously, as gaining access to true damage in E1. It still was quite noticeable though, as it did stack a couple of thousands to 10,000s to not 100,000, but like tens of thousands of damage on top of that. It mainly does become a personal increase to Tribbie's damage, which E2 and E6 are practically just Tribbie increased damage, while E1 and E4 is the more universal one. Since the additional damage you are dealing is still technically Tribbie's damage, because, you know, it's additional damage based off the zone and the HP. So that additional damage you are dealing is not rather your current DPS doing the damage. That's how the true damage works, but the additional damage is actually Tribbie and her max HP. So the E2 is further increasing that damage to 120% of the original damage and also gaining an extra instance of damage. So it still definitely ramps up. I think E2 is a lot more underrated because it does actually add on a lot of damage, especially with high frequency characters like Aglia or follow-up teams with Feixiao and someone else. In high frequencies, you get that additional proc so much to the point it's actually very noticeable because it adds up really fast, and even one big hit, it does definitely add up. When I was testing it by other means, I did definitely notice the difference because I saw higher numbers. I didn't think I was going to push for it. I wasn't going to try to like go crazy for it and try to get it like I did with the E1, but it ended up happening. And then once I tried it in the game and actually got to try it properly with my characters, it was very, very noticeable. Aglia already went from zero cycling super easily to somehow even zero cycling easier. The extra damage that the additional zone does deal is very, very much noticeable, and so I'm actually pretty happy I did get it. Again, E1 is the perfect stopping point. You definitely shouldn't waste a potential pity or potentially two pities if you lose to get the E2 for just additional damage buff, unless you really like Tribbie, of course, then that's up to you. I think it's definitely something that you should talk about more, or just should be talked about more. The whole thing is E1 is just so broken, and so people just stop the conversation there because that's like the main dupe. But E2 is definitely something that is a lot stronger than people think. But I will agree, E1 is definitely the stopping point. Again, it's not really worth all those pulls you can get for the E2 because, again, E1 giving you access to true damage is so broken. So again, E2, the damage very, very very much noticeable. And I definitely think it's definitely on the stronger side, and a lot more people should definitely factor that in, because I don't really see many talks about E2. I've seen next to none actually, which is kind of crazy, because when I got it, it felt really, really strong, and I was really surprised that no one really talked about it as much, because again, it makes sense somewhat, because again, E1 is just such a broken stopping point. But I feel like E2 could still gain some love for it, because you know, it just felt super, super strong. So E2, again, with E1, she's already the best harmony support in the game in my opinion. With E2, it just becomes that much more apparent, because not only, once again, you're buffing everyone's damage in the zone, the additional damage is doing more for their attacks, it's also doing more for Tribbie's attacks, so Tribbie's actual damage looks even higher as well. So at every level E0, she does good damage, she gives good buffs. At E1 becomes that much more broken. At E2, that extra additional damage becomes that much more as well. Just a very, very well made character at base that just becomes so much stronger with early dupes. My final impressions are I'm very, very happy with her. I definitely do think she is the best harmony support in the game at E1 or higher, and even at E0, the stuff she does provide is super strong. I don't think I put her on the tier as everyone else. I just put her a little bit below that. That's just my opinion though. You might think differently. We all have different opinions. But another thing to factor in is she's so much universal, because with Robin, you'll never use her with HP scaling characters, such as upcoming character Mide, or have use Blade or Zhenglu. You never will really use Robin. Ruan Mei doesn't really ever have the best slot unless it's a break team. She's still universal, but there's usually always a better option unless it is a break team. While Tribbie, literally just put her anywhere and she'll do good. She's not really buffing a specific stat that will be useless for someone else. She's not buffing a big attack, which would be useless on an HP character. She's not buffing a bunch of crit, which would be useless on dollar break. She's giving all-type rest pen, which everyone can use, additional damage that literally everyone can use, and making enemies take more damage, which anyone can use. And then you get the E1, where it's true damage, and everyone can have a benefit from that. Only thing that people won't benefit from for everyone is really just a light cone, which again you could change with the crit damage. So again, just such a well-rounded character, and I definitely think she is the best at E1. Final impressions, very, very satisfied. She is so fun to use with old DPS, new DPS. They definitely cooked really hard with how they did make her kit. But yeah, that's the videos. Let me know what you guys do think about Tribbie. Do you guys think she is as broken as a lot of other people or I am saying? Feel free to discuss in the comments. Peace out.